still have a month until Iran's next match, but today we are focusing on UEFA Europa League. Sardar Azmoun and the UEFA Europa League Semifinals are the main topic for today, but we will also have a scouting report and see what's happening in the Persian Gulf Pro League. You know the deal, and you know what time it is. It's time for Team Melli Talk. Will Azmoun play a big role for Bayer Leverkusen in the Europa League Semifinals? Hi everyone, welcome back to Team Melli Talk. For today's episode, we are joined by our German correspondent and my good friend, Navid Taher, joining us all the way from Berlin. Navid, welcome back to Team Melli Talk. It's good to have you on the show again, man.
Hello, Art. Thank you for having me on the show. It's always a big pleasure.
All right, well, you know what is on our minds. Coming up on the 11th of May, the huge, first leg of the semifinals for UEFA Europa League, Bayer Leverkusen against Roma. Obviously, we'll get to that, shortly. But first, let's stick to the basics. I rarely ever asked you this because we always talk about Team Melli, obviously. But what is your team in Germany? Are you Union Berlin or are you Hertha Berlin?
So I'm actually a fanatic fan of Bayern Munich since like 2001. But I obviously also have great sympathy for Hertha Berlin because it's the city I'm born in, and definitely Hertha, not Union Berlin. So yeah, it's close. So I also sometimes go see them live. But my main team in Germany is definitely Bayern Munich, and then followed by Hertha Berlin.
All right, and before we talk about Azmoun, who's currently obviously playing for Bayer Leverkusen, what does the German media say? What has the German media been saying about Sardar Azmoun?
Well, obviously at the beginning of the season, also before the World Cup, he had was in a hard situation. He didn't play much, was injured. Then even when he came back after the World Cup, he still didn't get many minutes. So he was kind of almost already labeled as like a flop transfer. But especially since mid February, that one game where he started against Mainz and assisted, I think even won a penalty. Slowly, media is very positive about him. Also, especially looking at his goals against Freiburg or Hertha Berlin, there's a lot of praise for him, especially. Yeah, that's kind of what the media has been saying. Like big German outlets like Kicker are reporting positively about them. Plus, also one thing is that I have him in my fantasy league team for Bundesliga, so I always hope Azmoun starts or at least contributes with a goal or assist.
All right, well, that obviously sounds like something that's of huge importance, and yes, that's a bonus for you. And let's look back at these recent matches. Ever since the 4-1 victory over Union Saint-Gilloise, the Belgian team, in the quarterfinals of Europa League, Bayer Leverkusen won that match 4-1. Azmoun came on in the 86th minute. Okay, now let's go straight to, of course, back to league play for the Bundesliga.
Yeah.
A 2-0 win over Rasenballsport Leipzig. Azmoun came on in the 68th minute. Then a 0-0 draw with Union Berlin. Azmoun came on, in the 62nd minute, basically just after the hour mark. The most recent match, which was yesterday, a 2-1 home loss to FC Köln. And Azmoun came on in the 81st minute. So overall, though, how do you feel recently about the amount of minutes Azmoun is getting? Do you like it? Are you okay with what you've been seeing, or is there like a little bit of you that might be a little frustrated?
I mean, obviously, as Iranian, we always want to see our boys play as much as possible, get the maximum amount of minutes, or at least start, play 60, 70, 80 minutes. But the thing is, since Xabi Alonso took over by Leverkusen, I think in September, October, they've been doing quite well. I think they haven't lost before the game yesterday. I think they didn't lose in almost 3 months. So in a way, successful if the team wins, the coach is always right? So obviously would have loved to get more see him get more minutes, but in a way I think Xabi still values him a lot. Like he brought him in a time where he was really struggling, didn't get any minutes, just put him against Mainz to start. So he definitely values him, but I think he just has a different type of plan for him, or maybe at the moment he doesn't fit exactly his style, because the players he's been starting, for instance, like Wirtz, Diaby, Washek, Adli, they are kind of a different type of player. They don't like the typical classical number 9 like Azmoun, who's not like a type of player that's camping in the box, but they're just kind of more versatile. They can play more on the wing. They're strong in the dribbling. So I think that's maybe the type of player type at the moment he's preferring, but obviously it doesn't mean like he's not going to start Azmoun ever again the rest of the season. I think it's also the fact you got to consider Bayer Leverkusen has many games. It's really coming to the hot part of the season, so I think every player is valued, every player is needed. So I think you will definitely get some more minutes, maybe even against Roma. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Roma for the moment. That's obviously the team that Bayer Leverkusen will be playing in the semifinals of Europa League. And let's not forget, Europa League is very important because the winner of Europa League gets a ticket to UEFA Champions League. So there obviously is something very important at stake here. And, when talking about Roma, let's not forget their head coach, Jose Mourinho. I mean, a man who doesn't really need an introduction. He's, he's coached he's coached a lot of very good teams. And, they have some dangerous players as well. I mean, like, so who are a couple players you think that, Bayer Leverkusen should watch out for? I mean, based on what you know about Roma.
I mean, obviously they have like players like Dybala, who's kind of a superstar, but surprisingly not playing that much. He's often kind of being on the bench. Then they have players like Pellegrini, their captain, Tommy Abraham, former Chelsea player. So they have a lot of like good options in attack, very experienced goalkeeper like Rui Patricio. But as you said, I think the bigger factor for this team is also like Jose Mourinho, who is a bit reminding me of Carlos Queiroz, a bit master of mind games, master of like getting into people's or players or coaches' heads. Especially considering that they won the UEFA Conference League last year. So he's definitely like a man of success. He knows how to win trophies. So yeah, and he really made this team into a very respectable, competitive team in Serie A again after they've been kind of having some bad years in the past.
So let's just talk predictions now. I don't want to get straight to the score. What's your prediction involving Azmoun? Do you see him starting or do you see him coming off the bench?
I mean, it's hard to say. Like, realistic right now, looking at the last games, I could see him, to be honest, on the bench. But then again, Xabi, I feel like it's kind of also a bit unpredictable. It could also just have him start. It will obviously also depend on the how the game goes, what the score is, if they're winning, if they're losing. Good thing about Azmoun is, although he's a striker, he's also often also very involved in defensive duties, which we also know from Team Melli. So he's not the striker you just have up front for long balls. You actually like almost goes back into their own defense to get the balls, to slide tackle, win balls, tackles, everything.
All right. I mean, from my point of view, I was thinking that, since he didn't start against Köln, part of me was maybe thinking, oh, maybe this might mean he'll start in the Europa League semifinal for the first leg against Roma. But, having one break, between, the league game, between the Bundesliga match with Köln and then, the Europa League, first leg semifinal, that's more than enough time for Xabi Alonso to say that he's going to go with, the players that he probably started against Köln as well. So I'm expecting Azmoun to come off the bench, which of course I hope he comes off the bench earlier rather than later. But we also got to wait and see what happens. And what about prediction? What is your prediction for the score between Bayer Leverkusen and Roma? Remember, this match will be played in Rome at the Stadio Olimpico.
Hard to say because I feel like both teams are actually on a similar level. I could see the first leg in Rome being a 1-1.
All right, a 1-1 draw. I think that's a very, very safe prediction, to be honest. From my point of view, it's hard. I really don't have the best prediction. I think you kind of took mine, but I think this one, I think I'm going to say Roma barely wins 2-1, but then Bayer Leverkusen comes back home to take care of business.
Navid, as always, a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. It's always, as you said, a pleasure. Always a lot of fun. Really enjoy it. So yeah, we'll be speaking soon.
All right, of course, and best of luck to Bayer Leverkusen. I know you're a Bayern Munich fan, but come on, when Azmoun's playing, I know Bayer Leverkusen is also your other team.
Of course.
For today's scouting report, we'll be taking a look at Aref Rostami of Mes Kerman. Rostami just turned 27 years old. He previously played for Nouriye Zamini, Khaybar Khorramabad, and Zobahan. Aref Rostami has scored 8 goals this season. He has a knack for finding himself in the right place at the right time, and he is solid with set pieces. Aref Rostami is listed as a winger and I like that he has the ability to put himself in scoring positions. But this season he has scored goals against some poor defenses, and to me, he comes off more as a striker than a winger. In terms of playing for Team Melli, let me be quick to say that I am not getting carried away. I think Aref Rostami has a chance to be on Iran's roster at the 2023 Central Asian Football Association Nations Cup, but only if Amir Galanoui brings a domestic-based squad. Now what about you? Do you think Aref Rostami deserves a call-up to Team Melli? Leave a comment down below. Always look forward to getting your input. To finish off this week's episode, let's take a look at some recent action in the Persian Gulf Pro League. Since our last episode, the Tehran derby took place, and it was Persepolis scoring a 1-0 victory with the only goal scored by Isa Al-Kassir early in the second half. Obviously a huge victory for Persepolis, but let's see what happened the next day when Sepahan hosted Malavan. Team Melli forward Shahriar Moganlu put Sepahan in the lead at the hour mark, but late in the match, Malavan equalizes through Sohail Fadakar. The match finished in a 1-1 draw. Sepahan fans were not in the mood to celebrate because it meant that Persepolis took over the top spot in the Persian Gulf Pro League table. League play resumed this weekend after a 2-week break. First, let's see what happened to the boys in blue. Peyman Babai gave Esteghlal a 1-0 lead against Sanat Naft Abadan when he scored from the penalty spot late in the first half, but Mehdi Mamizadeh scores the equalizer just after the hour mark. Ouch! Allowing these kinds of goals will not get Hossein Hosseini called up to Team Melli. That's the way it ended, a 1-1 draw, crucial points dropped by Esteghlal. And as for Sepahan, well, the Yellow Storm got back on track with a 2-0 victory over Naft Masjid Soleiman. How would Persepolis do against Paykan? Let's find out. It was scoreless for most of the match, but Persepolis is awarded a penalty in the 89th minute, and Mehdi Torabi blasts it down the middle to give Persepolis a huge 1-0 victory at the Azadi Stadium. The victory means Persepolis remains top of the table and controls its own destiny. If Persepolis wins its final 2 matches, Persepolis will win the Persian Gulf Pro League title for this season. If Sepahan wants a chance, they need to hope for Persepolis to drop points against Golgohar or Nasaji Mazandaran. And that's it, everybody, for this edition of Team Melli Talk. As always, really do appreciate the support. Make sure you get to our website, www.teammellitalk.com. Remember, this is your best source for the latest news on Team Melli, the national team of Iran. Make sure you find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You know the handle, at Team Melli Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. Hit that notification button. See you on the next edition of Team Melli Talk.